All right, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Angus Nelson, and I am live streaming from the Stryd headquarters in Boulder, Colorado. And we have some more great data to present to you today from Stryd Duo and Stryd Footpath. And specifically, we're going to be looking at a performance from the New York City Marathon. And this is really interesting data. This is from someone who's basically running the first marathon with Stryd Duo and Stryd Footpath. So we're going to be taking a look at that race and a look at what the data tells us from that race on in terms of both asymmetry and fatigue. So a bit more on this runner. This runner is run the Boston Marathon in the past, and at the New York City Marathon, he finished with a time of 3:12, which is really good for the New York City Marathon. Typically, when we do race predictions at the New York City Marathon versus like a perfectly flat course, it's typically around 5 minutes slower. So this would translate probably into like a 3:07 on a perfectly flat course in the normal conditions. So pretty fast runner, has run the Boston Marathon in the past, and there's some really interesting features of this run. And you can see in the screenshot here, we're looking at three data traces. We're looking at the power in the yellow line, the pace in the blue line, and of course the elevation profile in the back in the gray. And there's some really interesting features in this run that we're going to be looking at in terms of both pacing. And there was a complete seize up of the runner's leg at mile 22, and they had to completely stop and regroup and then continue on the race. So the Stryd footpath is going to give us some really interesting insight and also some really actionable paths the runner can use to modify their training in the future. So there we're looking at the Stryd footpath as well. That's the overall average of their footpath from the run. But we're gonna open up the tool. We're gonna look at this and really look at it in detail here as well. And all this data was created with the new Stryd Duo. So if you missed the announcement, head over to blog.stryd.com and click on some of our recent posts to learn more about the Stryd Duo, the new asymmetry metrics. And the Stryd Duo was used to create the Stryd footpath, which is what we're going to be looking at in depth here. And for the Stryd Duo and the Stryd Footpath, there's some really groundbreaking use cases for this data. And I've listed them, the 5 use cases over on the right-hand side here. Injury recovery, seeing how drills impact the gait, the impact of footwear, watching how performance transforms, and then specifically fatigue. And that's what we're going to be looking at here with this data. So let's jump into it here. Let's take a look at that footpath data. And before we jump into the footpath data, I just want to open up the typical second-by-second data stream view that you're going to see on Stryd Power Center here. And we just kind of want to cover the run and see how this race went. And for anyone who has run the New York City Marathon before, you're going to be very familiar with the unique challenges of this course. But for anyone who's not familiar, I'm going to be walking through them here. So how the race starts is on a bridge, up a bridge. So it starts with an uphill, climbing that bridge. And there's a number of bridges throughout the race, which really adds unique challenges to this course. And we can see how that pace and power decouples over the course of this race, and that helps really showcase the challenge of those bridges and the impact that has on pacing. And then the runners finish in Central Park, which is always a very exciting moment with very strong crowd support going slightly downhill, and ends up for a very fast and exciting finish here. And specifically zooming in on these first few miles of the run, this runner was positioned right at the start line of the course where they had no one in front of them when they started the race. And that was a very exhilarating moment for them. And you can see that here in the power trace. They started out slightly hot because they had so many runners behind them at that, slightly above their power target. And then they were able to quickly adjust and really fall into their power target just 2 miles into the race, a little less than 2 miles, about a mile and a half into the race, where they were able to settle in and really, regroup and make sure they weren't going to overcook their power target throughout the race. And from there, they basically held that power target pretty steady. There's some variation simply due to the challenges of the course, where it's hard to hold that, perfectly even power target. And they're able to hold that here until this bridge. And then once they came out this bridge, they started to feel like they were beginning to fatigue on one side of their body, and that fatigue continued for the next few miles until finally the runner had their entire left leg seize up, and they actually had to stop for around a minute here and regroup And fortunately, they were able to get some salt tablets, help alleviate that, that muscle cramping. And then they were able to continue and finish the race pretty strong at a steady pace and finish at 3 hours and 12 minutes here. So that's kind of the overall perspective of the run. And now we can kind of dive into this in more detail with the Stryd Footpath. So the Stryd Footpath is giving a representation of the gait throughout the run here, and we can turn on the reference image here to really see, to get a perspective on what we're looking at here. So here we're viewing the runner from a side profile, and we can view two traces here, and one is the left side, left leg, and one is the right leg. And we can see that left in the yellow and the right in the blue here. And this reference image really gives us a perspective on what we're looking at. And we can also view this, of course, from the top view. So imagine if you're over runner and you're looking down. And then we can also view this from the back view as if the runner was running away from us here. And we built this really powerful tool to just give you complete control of your data. So here is the average footpath over the entire duration of the run. But we can also select certain segments, and you can see the footpath responds in a highly responsive manner here. So let me just grab a roughly a 20-minute section from the start of the run here. And to complement this view, not only do we get to see the footpath, we can also see all the metrics from this section of the run on the right-hand side here. So we can see things such as distance, power, cadence, impact loading rate, and we can even customize this to turn on and off other metrics to view here. And then once we selected a section, we can actually see how this transforms. And you can kind of create your own video from your run just by selecting a section and then slowly dragging it across here to see how that footpath changes over the course of the run here. And we can see this response in real time just as I grab that section and pull it across the run there. So we can definitely see that there are some changes across this run here. And specifically, want to look at is what led up to that leg seizing up late in the race. So in order to do this, what we can actually turn on is a comparison view inside of the Stryd Footpath tool. And let me show that to you here. So I've already loaded up the same run twice, and what I can do is select a section of the timeline from the first run here, and then select a section of the timeline from the same run, and I can view those overlaid on top of each other in the footpath view here. So we can see in the solid line, I'm viewing this first section, and in the dashed line, I'm viewing this second section. So let me turn that off here, and we're just going to focus on this top timeline here. And as I said, the runner is able to settle into a rhythm and settle into that perfect power pacing target right at the start of the race once they came off that bridge here. So we're going to use that as our baseline here. So I'm going to select a section of that run here and use this as our baseline for comparison and see how that runner's gait transformed over the course of the run here. So I'm going to grab roughly a 30 to 40-minute section here of the run. And now I'm going to turn on the bottom timeline here. So I'm going to grab a later section of the run. And in order to really clearly illustrate this, I'm going to go to the back view here. So as the runner was moving into the later stage of the race, once they came off that second big bridge, they started to feel that their leg was that they're having they definitely were experiencing some fatigue in that left leg, and we can view that left leg in the yellow trace there. And this second section, as I mentioned, is in the dash line. So I want to basically see how that gait started to transform from the moment they came off that bridge and they started to feel that fatigue to the moment that their legs seized up here. So I've grabbed that section here. I'm just going to pull that across here, and we're going to see how that gait transforms. And we're noticing a really interesting pattern. So I'm just going to go back to the beginning here and do that again here. And one more time. Where we can see on the right side in the blue, actually their gait is pretty stable. Their footpath is pretty stable. It's not really collapsing in, but on the left side there, we can see that dash line really starts to begin to collapse in. And it collapses in all the way into that moment of, completely seizing up where the runner had to stop and start seeking out the salt tablets here. So this really gives us a unique perspective and showing, visually representing that fatigue that the runner was experiencing. And, this is good for a few reasons. First, it represents the incredible power of this tool and that it aligns very well and helps quantify the runner's personal feeling. But also it can give us really valuable training advice on how this happens. So, and how the runner can work to correct this in future races. So we can see that after two bridges and roughly 16 miles of running, they were feeling pretty good that far. But once they started to move into the later stage of the race and push past that 16-mile mark, that's when they started to experience fatigue. And they experienced that fatigue for roughly 5 to 6 miles there coming off. And then they were not able to go any further and actually completely seized up. So this kind of speaks to a factor we were talking a lot about a lot at the race, and that runners are very mentally strong. You can push through a lot, but there are mechanical limits, and eventually you will hit those limits. So what this Stride Duo data is telling us is it's giving us a quantification on exactly how much change is occurring in the gait and when those changes occur. So, for example, what this runner could work on, they know that they're very strong through 16 miles. They know they can handle multiple bridges, but multiple major hills in a sense. But after that point, they are going to experience some changes in their gait, and that can lead to fatigue that they have to overcome. So, what they could work on is continue to work on those longer runs, continue to push past that 16-mile mark, and really work on their strength past that point and kind of extend that mechanical limit even further in the race so that they do not experience the same thing again in future runs where they entirely seize up. And we can see that even though they were able to recover, this did have a pretty major impact on their pace. So we can see here, just by selecting the first 22 miles until they seized up, they were averaging 7 minutes and 8 seconds per mile. We can see that in the top timeline here. And then this bottom timeline, once they recovered and kept pushing, um, towards the end, they slowed down over 30 seconds per mile at 7:44 minutes per mile pace. So we can see that not only stopping but also resuming the run, they were running at a slower pace, and they definitely could have saved some time and had an even better performance with just a few changes to their training in order to overcome this. So the Stride Footpath is giving incredible insight and helping really validate the runner's feeling, and that it really was just occurring on one side of the body, that fatigue. And we can see here that the indicators were not present in the power data, for example. So here I'm just selecting the average over that entire duration, those first 22 miles versus where the fatigue started to kick in. We can see that they're actually running at a very similar power target, 296 versus 299. So these indicators were not present in the power or pace data, but we can see that it was present in the footpath data. So the footpath data is not only just visually representing your run, but it's also giving that unique insight that's not really available through just pure metrics. And this is what we want to deliver with the uh, Stride powered with the Stride footpath data, and that it's not just it's very highly personal in what you're going to experience and what you're going to learn, and that it's about finding your balance, finding your power, and finding your stride. Where these insights I just talked about, this applies specifically to this runner, and these are techniques you can use to analyze your own data. They're not necessarily things that are going to be universally applied to all runners. For example, if you have really great endurance already and you don't experience that fatigue, you probably need to work on your speed instead, or work on a different factor in your run. And the Stride Footpath can help find those unique things that you need to work on. Where this runner may need to work on their endurance and work on those longer runs in order to have the resistance to combat the fatigue later in the run. So it's highly personal in the insights you're going to find. Uh, and how I would recommend looking at it is always, keep note of your personal feeling, keep, that story of your run in your mind, and then use that and look at the Stride Footpath data after your run and see how your personal journey relates to being what's shown when you look at your Stride Footpath. So if you want to embark on your journey today, start collecting your Stride Duo data, start collecting your Stride Footpath data. We do have some incredible offers at stride.com/store, including the Stride Duo Plus membership if you don't have Stride yet or you're using a previous version of Stride. And then until the end of today, if you are an existing Stride Next Gen user, you can get a second Next Gen Stride Pod in order to create your Stride Duo by getting a code on your Power Center. So that ends in roughly 12 hours from now. So if you are a next-gen Stride user, we've made it really easy for you to get your second pod to upgrade to Stride Duo. And I just want to thank everyone again. Thanks everyone that came by and saw us at the New York City Marathon. It was great to talk to everyone, get their feedback on the new features, explain the new features, showcase it, and also in our existing features. All that helps inform the direction we're going, and helps us build new great innovations that really help you, and help your use with Stride, and also deepen your passion for running. So now I'm going to take some questions. I know some questions came in on Stride Duo and Stride Footpath, and I'll be answering some of those because some of those already came in. So we have a few comments from Abbey Road. I did my first run with Stride Duo. Very interesting. This new feature in particular is going to be very useful. Yeah, thanks for that, Abby. So glad that you're going to be running a Stride Duo, and we can't wait to see your insights here. So I hope also this presentation gave you some things to look at and things you can learn from in terms of viewing how one leg can change relative to the other, and how you can use these different views to help really illuminate new insights in your run. We have a question from Alan saying, I just got my first Stride and Duo. I ran a 1 kilometer test. I've always put more weight on my left leg based on my Garmin dynamics. I found that with Stride Duo, my right leg raises 5 centimeters less than my left. What to do with this info? So one of the tools and one of the things when we focused on with Stride Duo is helping trend these metrics. So weird to see a very clear trend within the context of a single run here, but that might not always be the case. And for example, if there are changes within the run, that could be a indicator of fatigue. It could be an indicator of basically your performance is increasing if you're loosening up more. So we're going to be building, helping you build trends with your data, and that's why it's so important to start collecting data now, because any data you can establish now will help us build those trends going into the future. So a few things to keep in mind is that this data is all highly personal. Asymmetry isn't necessarily bad. Every runner's gait is going to look different from each other. You might not always see trends within a single run, but once you do find those trends and you do see the point where fatigue starts to set in, absolutely, and you start to see the point where or when you're recovered from injury, then the data is incredibly useful. So, my recommendation, Alan, is to keep collecting data, keep monitoring these trends, and keep looking for very clear, delineations in the data. For example, this runner had a clear seize up on their hip and on their left side of their body and their left leg in this run, and that gave us very definite conclusions. In your case, it might take more data to really determine that. For example, I've been running on the treadmill. I actually have done 40 miles on the treadmill in the last four days, and I was looking for trends, and I need to actually keep collecting some more data to really build those clear conclusions. And when I do have that, I'll definitely be going live to help present those. But you might see this in a single run. It might take multiple runs. So the best thing you can do is just keep collecting data, and we're going to help you out by building tools to help trend that data and recognize patterns. A comment from Boris asking, it would be nice to see the map and laps in this view. So, we really appreciate the feedback, and we've got some really incredible features coming in you're going to be very happy with in regards to that comment. So, stay tuned, keep the feedback coming, and we're going to help, take this tool to even higher levels with your feedback. Great comment saying, I can see I am balanced and that I can run more than I think. 10-kilometer race data confirms this. We'll be planning a half marathon in September. Yeah, and that's an excellent comment as well. In that, this has helped me realize that fatigue doesn't necessarily always set in when you think it does, and um, you might be stronger than you think, and you might be able to handle more volume, more hard training, and really execute more high quality sessions with the Stride Duo. And this data can help confirm that, help confirm your personal feeling, help quantify that. So, you're going to be learning all kinds of things: when to hold back, when to keep pushing, and that's all going to result in better training with that insight. A comment asking, do you need to pull the Stride Footpath data after every run, or if you miss a few, will they get synced on the next sync? And that's a great question. And Stride has a lot of internal memory. So if you don't collect the footpath, if you don't sync the footpath after every run, that's perfectly fine. You can sync, after a few runs or even after a week of running. It really depends on how far your runs are, but yeah, you're going to be totally fine if you don't sync after every run, because yeah, Stride has a lot of memory, and it'll store that data for syncing later on. Comment from James saying, I have run with Duo. These presentations have been good. Feels like you are all excited about this addition. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're still discovering along with you. We're kind of on the forefront of this. We're discovering this for the first time. So we're glad you're taking this journey with us. And when we learn things, yeah, we're going to go live and present them. And when we find things, yeah, we want to take that to you as soon as possible, and just really work in a very collaborative, real-time way to help make the best use of this data, and help enhance your performance, achieve your goals, and deepen your passion for running. A question from Cuban Bees. I am a beginner runner, gym and cycling. Got my first stride today, solo one. So how beneficial would a duo be for me? Yeah, and there's a few different paths you can take on this. So, a single next gen pod is going to be incredibly powerful for your training, and then that duo just offers that upgrade path to keep going to that next level. So, if you just got your first stride today, the next gen stride, I definitely recommend to start with some of our either 3 easy runs to help establish your critical power. You can jump into a testing plan if you're already in pretty good fitness and really want to establish a very accurate critical power. Then you can jump into a training plan, go through a training plan, use the Stride race power calculator to get a race plan for your next race. So there's a ton of things you can just do with one pod that are really going to be beneficial to your performance. And then if you do fall into those 5 categories I talked about early on in the presentation, the injury recovery, the fatigue management, the footwear selection, performance, drills, if any of those start applying to you, that's when Stride Duo is going to become really beneficial in getting those asymmetry metrics and getting the Stride footpath. But if you're just want to ramp up your training, achieve some race goals, then a single next gen Stride is going to be, perfectly beneficial for you right now. And this option is always available for you when you're ready. A question from Andrew saying, I've done a few runs with Stride Duo. I can't figure out how to see the power balance. I feel like one leg is working harder than the other. Can you show us how hard each leg is working? So, yeah, absolutely. We have 4 really great second by second metrics, asymmetry metrics, and a fifth vertical ratio that we've enabled with Stride Duo. So, depending on your watch, that data will be collected, and it is available in the mobile app for analysis now, and it soon will be available on Power Center for analysis. And those 4 asymmetry metrics are the leg spring stiffness balance, so the how much energy you're recycling on one side of the body versus the other, The vertical oscillation balance, this is another new metric, showing how high the center of mass of the body is propelled on one side versus the other. Ground contact time balance, and then impact loading rate balance. And all four of these have unique use cases. As I talked about the leg spring stiffness, this will help you really have insight into how much energy you're recycling. And the impact loading rate shows you how much impact you're absorbing. Then the ground contact time and vertical oscillation kind of give you that really good insight with stride fidelity for the first time into your biomechanics. So in terms of you feel like one leg is working harder than the other, I would really zoom in on those on the two metrics, leg spring stiffness balance and impact loading rate balance, because this will show you how much impact you're absorbing, how much energy is being recycled on one side versus the other. And this will give you a really good idea into how hard each side of the body is working and if there's something you can work on in regards to that. A question saying it would have been useful with a breakdown of what the different parts of the curve slash path represent in terms of gait. An example where the heel hits the ground, where the toe hits, especially in the back view. And yeah, that's a great point. We do have some graphics we're playing with. We have some additional blog posts to talk about this in detail, and these are things we're also considering to build into the tool. So this is very valuable feedback for us. We're definitely have major advancements to the tool coming, and we're going to be helping dive into those, breaking down the parts of the gate in the educational material and in the tool in the future. A question from Dave saying, being a running stats geek, I'm loving the Stride Duo setup, getting ready to use it in a research project testing responsiveness and running economy of super shoes. And yeah, this is a fantastic test. And this is a really clear one. In as little as one run, you can really start to see the differences. Of course, it's always good to collect more data to really see how those differences change across speeds, across incline, across a number of different factors. But and as little as just one run, I've done this test. You go run at your kind of a lower speed, and then you go run at a faster speed, wearing two different sets of shoes, and you can really start to see how different shoes have different impacts on your gait at different speeds. Even that was just one test I did, and like I said, there's a number of things you can do regarding grade and other factors. I simply did a speed test, but you can really start to see that, yeah, the super shoes, from for me at least, one of the pairs I have, it does substantially change my gait as I move to faster speeds. And based on my analysis of the data, they did lead to advantageous changes in the gait when I started moving to faster speeds. So if you are running the Stride Duo, this is definitely a test I recommend to do. You can do this, on a treadmill if you have access to a treadmill running at similar speeds. You can do this on a track where you can also control the speed. It's always important to try and hold as many factors stable as you can and only change one factor in order to really, for example, just change the shoes while maintaining speed and grade, etc. So you can really narrow in on those changes on just one factor. But yeah, it's really easy to do and it's really insightful. So yeah, that's fantastic to hear you will be doing that research project. And yeah, if you're willing to share your results, definitely post in the Stride community, and that'll help inform others' use of the tool and their learnings as well. So that's all the comments and questions I have for now. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. As I said, if you are looking to upgrade to the Stride Duo, we have some great purchasing options. You can go to stride.com/store and check out the Stride Duo option if this is your first time using Stride. Or if you're already using the next gen Stride, we have a code that expires in 12 hours from now that'll be accessible to you on your Power Center. And um, definitely subscribe to the Stride YouTube channel for more presentations. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for future live broadcasts. We're definitely been doing more, publishing more videos. Definitely follow us along at the Stride blog at blog.stride.com for more educational material. I want to thank everyone for tuning in once again, and I can't wait to bring you more insights in the future.